Hello, folks. I am back, and this time I'm here to talk about the Tale of Two Firearms. Before I begin the video, I just want YouTube to know that all firearms are unloaded and the magazines are unloaded. I just did this to save a little bit of time on my video. So let me get right to it. So yesterday while I was working at the range, a friend of mine came in with his brand new Staccato XC, and I put in a poll. Would any of you trade in three firearms to acquire this firearm, or do you feel that it was worth the trade, or what do you feel like it's worth the money at that point? Uh, the Staccato XC, I believe it's running. My friend said he paid somewhere in the neighborhood of $4,300, and that is a lot of money for a lot of people. So we all started talking about it at the range, and a lot of us said, "Hey, that's a good. That price is good for a used car if you wanted to buy a used car or hoopty or whatever." But in this case, we debated whether or not this was worth it. I fired this firearm, and it shot wonderfully. I shot this, and I got an inch group at 7 yards. So I think shot somewhere anywhere between 5 or 10 rounds and got a decent inch group. It is a fantastic shooting firearm. As you see here, here's some. And what I like about it is the compensator right here. The compensator is it's made into it right there. One of the main things about this firearm, what makes the price go up, is not only the compensator. There are, I believe, two versions of this. There's the one where you can put your RMR or whatever optic that you want on there, so that would raise the price up. And then you have your standard one. If I could just scroll back down, but there is a standard version as you see right there. Now, for that price point, I understand what Staccato's motto is. Their motto is basically, "What is your life worth?" I don't think of that as more like a motto, but pretty much like a sales niche to get you to purchase the firearm. And it could be a motto to a certain degree, but it's a lot of salesmanship to say that. But this particular Staccato right here, this is my very own. Pre-pandemic, I paid roughly anywhere between $1,800 and $1,900 for this one. This is the standard Staccato P, and as you see, this is the standard one with the regular sights that are on here. Now, the version with the RMR cut, it raises that price up to roughly about $2,300. Now, I have a limit that I won't cross. My limit is right there at the two mark right there. So that is my thinking on it. I won't cross a certain limit. Now, I am very blessed to have the firearms that I do have, but I do have a limit, and that's where my limit lies at that point. Now, since the pandemic has been in full swing, these are now going in the neighborhood of somewhere around 22, 23, depending on where you shop. And the optic cut version is somewhere creeping around 25 or a little more. So it's all what you want to spend your money on. So while I was at the range, there was another individual. He came into the store and he was shooting at the range, and he was telling me about this particular firearm. And this firearm here, this is a Tang Folio version, but it looks similar to this. It was an EAA. I don't recall the exact model number, but it looks similar to this. So a lot of people know that when EAA and Tang Folio, they make a lot of clones. Their clone guns are very good and replicable, and their clones are basically made off of the CZ platforms, the CZ75 platforms. So I shot a version of that at 7 yards, and he said he spent somewhere between $400 and $500 for this particular firearm. And at 7 yards, I shot a group of 1.5 inches. I had one flyer, which was my stupidity, but 1.5 inches. Not that much different from the Staccato XC. And what amazed me about this firearm was the double action trigger was extremely smooth. It felt like uh, the trigger from like a CZ's custom shop, which is amazing. Uh, it was very accurate. Like I said, double action pull was smooth, and it just really impressed me. So think about it. You got a Staccato XC, one of the premier firearms that's around $2,500 versus a $500 firearm that shoots lights out. That may really turn the tables of things. And a lot of times people will say it's not the gun, it's actually the shooter. Well, if you have a firearm of this, that I'm going to say this is very good quality because this firearm shoots accurate, smooth, and no malfunctions, no hiccup. Well, a lot of people are spending their hard earned money. And do you really want to spend that type of money on a firearm that's $2,500, or are you going to stick with something like this? Everybody's economic situation is totally different, and I get that. And really, I could not justify spending $2,500 on that Staccato. I love the firearm. I have Staccatos, but there's a line I won't cross. So if you watch some of my earlier videos, what I've done, and for some people that have, let's say, other models, you can upgrade some of your firearms. Like, for instance, this was a standard SPO1 Urban Tactical. And like I said, this firearm is empty. So just to reassure people, it is empty. All I did to this firearm is I sent it to Cajun Gunworks and changed out the trigger system so it can be very smooth. And this trigger system in that stock gun of the original trigger system was rougher, harder than that firearm right there. And that firearm was a little bit cheaper than this version when it was in its stock condition. So what I did was send it to Cajun Gunworks, got the trigger done. Now you don't have to do anything crazy, fantastic, and add that. I just changed the trigger out for a smoother action, and so that the firearm would perform the way I wanted to. But the point being is, do you really want to spend a lot of extra money on a firearm that you may have to upgrade, or the other advantage to this is have the firearm, buy it at a reasonable price. Maybe a couple years down the line, maybe you want to add something to it, and that's what I did in the case of this particular firearm. But remember, this was shooting lights out of the box before with no modifications versus this one. There are some firearms that you can basically buy and just add just a tiny bit of something. You don't even have to change anything that's stock. Like this firearm here, this is basically completely stock firearm. And again, just showing, this is a CZ P10F. The only thing I did was sent the firearm away to get the slide cuts done. That's something that I wanted. The sights, and I had a optic put on here, a Holosun optic put on here. Nothing that, and it shoots pretty much dead on, with maybe on my best day, maybe a 1.5 inch group or a little tighter. You don't have, and again, this firearm, you can purchase these somewhere around the neighborhood of $500 or a little more, depending on what your location is. And again, my friend shooting with Uncle Dan said he wouldn't spend that kind of money because he can buy roughly 3 or 4 or 5 of these, and it will still be a good shooter. And Uncle Dan's point, and what other people have said in the comments about that poll, they rather have more of these for the price of a Staccato XC that is going to be a defensive firearm that you can use purposely, and that you'll be able to, God forbid, if you're in some type of situation where you have to defend yourself, they're going to take away that staccato XC and probably hold it in the evidence locker. And I know from being a police officer at one time, sometimes your firearms might not return back to you, even though it might be a justified shoot. Sometimes these things do happen. So Uncle Dan said, I'd rather have one of these and shoot these all day. And I agree with him. This is a very adequate, decent firearm. People call it the Tupperware gun. They call people Glocktards, whatever. But at the end of the day, this is going to be your reliable firearm. And it's still going to do the same thing as all the expensive firearms do. They all are going to shoot. The important thing is, it's the shooter. The gun only adds certain enhancements if you go up that dollar mark. So, with that said, would you still spend the money for a staccato XC? Or would you just go with something basic that is very reliable like that and have great accuracy, or have a defense gun? All right, that's all I got to say, and thanks for answering that poll. I look forward to your comments again, and happy shooting, stay safe, #2A.